Joining us now, however, is a friend of this program, and you know his voice. He's been a member of Salem Radio, the Salem Radio family before. He, of course, had to stop doing his show because he is a candidate for the United States Congress now. He is a former Ohio State representative, now wants to be a U.S. representative, taking the seat held by Dave Joyce. And, of course, we talk about our good friend Matt Lynch. Matt, good morning. How are you, sir?
Bob, good morning. I want to say Merry Christmas despite the difficult news that we're all discussing today, but we have to keep a smile on our faces this time of year, despite what these phony Republicans are doing in Washington.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're doing, Matt. That is exactly it, and that's why I thought it was so perfect as far as the timing goes to get you on the radio and to talk about this because, quite frankly, you know, we keep thinking that we're sending conservatives to Capitol Hill to work for us. In 2010, after President Obama had 2 years of unchecked progressive power, with both houses of the Congress being held by Democrats, in 2010, the conservatives came out, the Tea Party came out and put a bunch of Republicans in power. Then in 2014, they doubled down, expanding that reach in the House and giving them control of the Senate. And Matt, nothing is changing, which is why, you know, I'm looking at a guy like you, and I know you're a Tea Party supported guy. I know you just got a very, very important endorsement that I'll let you talk about from our friends at from our friends at the
Citizens United.
Citizens United. That's right.
Yes.
I've got 3 or 4 different conservative groups here that I know are going to give you an endorsement over Dave Joyce. I want to let you talk about those things, Matt. But before you talk about those endorsements, what do you see on Capitol Hill? Because, you know, we keep doing this. We keep sending people we think are going to advocate for us, and they all keep capitulating to the rhinos and to the Democrats, Matt.
Well, Bob, you know, I was at a GOP Christmas party in Lake County last night, and during a Q&A session, a question was asked why it would be that after all these years of fighting for conservative values in the Republican Party, and then we hand the Senate, we hand the House to the Republicans, that still nothing changes. And the answer is because we're sending the wrong kind of people to Washington, D.C. We're sending people to Washington, D.C. They're wholly captured by the left-leaning leadership of the Republican Party and, frankly, by their funders like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And as long as those folks are running the party and choosing our candidates, you're not going to see anything different happen in Washington, D.C. And that's, frankly, why I'm running, because I saw this in Columbus, and we see it in Washington, D.C. The only way we're going to change things is to have people that are dedicated to the conservative principles of the party and not to the people that are writing the checks for the party.
Let's get specific on this. Now, I know obviously you're not in Congress yet. We hope that happens sooner rather than later, obviously. But
March 15th is the primary, and that's when people have a real choice. You know, Bob, one of the problems is that people don't pay attention until November. It's too late in November. You've got to make your choice for a conservative candidate in the primaries, and that's March 15th of next year, just 3 months away.
So, yeah, 90 days away, I was about to say, and it is coming up fast, and it can't come soon enough, as I say. So you're not there yet, though. You're on the outside looking in from what you understand on the outside.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on this omnibus spending bill that is $1.1 trillion of Democrat dreams and conservative American nightmares?
Well, it's a disaster, and you only have to look to Nancy Pelosi to know it because she's bragging about how they were able to keep out of this bill all of the conservative issues that you and I would say were essential to be put in this bill, not the least of which is protecting American jobs and American lives. This situation in which the extraordinary majority of the American people, not just Republicans, but Republicans and Democrats, over 80%, want to stop the importation of these Syrian refugees that might do harm to us, that have already done harm to us, as we know, and also want to protect American jobs by closing the southern border. And yet this bill not only doesn't accomplish those goals, but it makes things worse. It actually continues to fund Obama's amnesty program. It continues to fund the refugee programs. It increases the guest worker programs to $250,000 a year, as Jeff Sessions has complained about. This is a disaster for the American worker, and it's a disaster for the most vulnerable American workers, those workers at the lowest end of the economic strata that are trying to get the service jobs, that are trying to get unskilled labor jobs. These are the folks that'll be damaged by this bill. And these are the folks that even the Democrats claim they want to protect. And frankly, I don't know. I pull my hair out at this. And if I may, I'd like to speak directly to Dave Joyce and his staff and say, please grow a spine and protect the American people and vote against this bill.
Matt, I completely respect that. We're talking to Matt Lynch, former Ohio State representative, is running against Dave Joyce for Congress in the U.S. House. If you were to get there, let's say you're there today, or let's advance it a little bit, I guess, and say you're a freshman representative, and you get an opportunity to meet with Speaker Ryan. I've been sitting here ripping him for 2 days, and I didn't have high hopes for him when he was selected. It was certainly better than Kevin McCarthy, I thought, when it came down to it. But I was hoping somebody in the Freedom Caucus would step up, perhaps, and make a run for the speakership, somebody who's truly going to be conservative. Paul Ryan is not. He is proving to not have the best interest of the American voters and the American people and the American workers, particularly the vulnerable ones you just talked about, at heart. So you're a freshman representative, and you get an audience with Speaker Ryan. How do you handle that? And do you think you'll be able to work with him on getting something changed?
Well, the reality is that when it comes to the politics of legislation, it's all about power and votes. I was in the Ohio House, as you know. And I remember very well when we fought hard against Medicaid expansion. We fought hard against the increase in the sales tax in Ohio. We even fought hard to try to keep illegals out of the state of Ohio by denying them driver's licenses. But in every instance, it comes down to who has the votes. Jim Jordan is a crusader for the conservative causes in the U.S. Congress, but he doesn't yet have the number of votes he needs to really push back against the leadership. When they were able to dethrone John Boehner, that was a significant success. But it was short-lived because he just couldn't and continues to look for more representatives, frankly, like myself, that will join the Freedom Caucus to push back. There's no doubt Paul Ryan turned out to be John Boehner 2.0, and it simply is not the kind of leadership we need. But again, we're not going to change the leadership if we don't have the right kind of members of the House. When you talk about
that,
working...
But, let me jump in for a second,
yes.
Matt, because I think he's worse than John Boehner 2.0. And the reason why, as I said before, he's had an opportunity to watch the mistakes Boehner has made. And the one thing that he was supposed to be, and he's the reason why the Freedom Caucus went ahead and voted for him, not endorsing him en masse, but most of the members went ahead and voted for him, despite originally planning to back Daniel Webster, as they said, maybe he can be the bridge who can bring the establishment Republicans, the ones who are too eager to cross the aisle and give up everything that the Democrats want, and the conservatives who are trying to do what the people want. Maybe he can be that balancer. Well, he knew coming in what was expected of him. So for him to go full Boehner on the American people and on the rest of Congress with this bill, with this $1.1 trillion atrocity, shows to me that he's actually worse than John Boehner, Matt.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that, Bob, and I would tell people you've got to follow the money. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has spread millions and millions of dollars around on the floor of the U.S. Congress in order to make sure that bills like this get passed. My opponent alone in his last election cycle was supported with $325,000. Think about that, Bob. $325,000 for his reelection campaign. And in what is their biggest issue? It's amnesty. And that's why you're going to see, I'm sorry to say, the likelihood is that Dave Joyce and all the others that receive money vote for this bill and give all these new immigrant workers cheap labor to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And until people, frankly, stop taking the money and stand up for the people of the 14th District and the people of America, it's going to continue on. If you go to Dave Joyce's website this morning, he's actually bragging about supporting this bill. He's not embarrassed about it whatsoever.
No, I know. And there are a number of others are as well, including obviously the speaker who's pushing this thing. And you're exactly right. It's why we need to replace people like Dave Joyce with true conservatives. Did I understand you to say, by the way, a moment ago, that if indeed you are elected, you will join the Freedom Caucus?
Absolutely. Now, the Freedom Caucus is by invitation only. But I'll be knocking on their door. I know Jim Jordan well. Of course, he was a former member of the Ohio House.
Certainly.
And one of our heroes, really. I've been on the House floor when you've only got a handful of votes in the Ohio House, fighting for a conservative cause. And I remember one day another member of the House came up to me, Republican, and he said, Matt, I wish I could vote the way you do. And I said, well, Dave, you can. You just have to grow a spine and get it done.
Do it. That's exactly right.
You have to stand up for the people and not for the politics of the situation.
Matt, last thing, because we're short on time and I got to get some folks on the radio. Tell me about the endorsement from Citizens United, a quote from David Bossie, president, a man who I've had on this program, by the way. Matt Lynch will be a steadfast conservative change agent in Congress and will be a strong advocate for pro-growth and fiscally responsible economic policies for his constituents. That's just part of his statement. This is a great, great coup to get the support of David Bossie and Citizens United.
Yeah, it really is, and I'd encourage people to go to mattlynch.com where they can read the full endorsement for Citizens United. Citizens United really is one of the leading conservative advocacy groups in Washington, D.C. We're excited to have this endorsement. We expect it to be the first of a number of endorsements from conservative groups. Citizens United, like so many other conservative groups, every conservative group, rates my opponent with a big fat F for all of his liberal voting. And this is really going to, I think, open the way to turn this election to our favor on March 15th. And I'd invite all those Republicans that are frustrated at what's going on in Washington to finally decide that the establishment, rhino, phony Republicans, call them what you will, are never going to solve this problem for us. But we need folks that are going to stand up for the people of the 14th District, and that's Matt Lynch.
That is so very true and so very, very important. And you're right, it's the first of many to come because I know a lot of conservative groups who are going to back you and support you between now and March 15th, obviously, when that primary comes. And, Matt, we'll have you back on as well. And you know what? Obviously, we give equal time, and I'm going to contact David Joyce's folks, and if they're listening, to give them an opportunity. I would love to have some of these conversations with Dave Joyce to get him to explain to the American people why he's voting for this
$1.1 trillion. It's been interesting to hear. He had a teleconference on the phone the other day, and he announced the survey that 86% of his constituents voted on his survey to deny the refugees coming into this country, and he's going to vote for it anyway.
He's going to vote for it anyway. Exactly right. And that's why we're going to try to talk to him, and that's why we're talking to you and going to try to do everything we can to make sure that the American voters, the voters, at least in this district, know full well who the true conservative candidate is, Matt. We wish you the best of luck. Thank you for coming
Bob,
on.
Thanks so much. Have a Merry Christmas.
You do the same. Thank you, Matt.